Wardens and CCTV.
Okay, you're now live, Chair.
Wardens.
Okay, everybody, here we go then. So, good afternoon. I'm Councillor Lee Hunt, Cabinet Member for Community Safety at Portsmouth City Council, and welcome to my virtual meeting from the comfort of my own home. Members of the public are invited to view this meeting, and there has been the opportunity for written representations to be submitted. We are meeting virtually in response to the limitations placed on governance by the COVID-19 pandemic. For the purposes of this meeting, the City Solicitor has advised that pursuant to Section 78 of the Coronavirus Act 2020, this meeting will be run by reference to the model standing orders as set out in the Local Authorities Coronavirus Flexibility of Local Authority Meetings Regulations 2020. Number 392, the regulations. Members, please keep your cameras on throughout the meeting and only turn your microphones on when you speak. Officers,
Chair, I'm not getting any audio.
I think he might have frozen.
Yep. I do believe he's frozen.
Either that or he's able to stay very still.
No, he has frozen. Cal. Jane, Jane, who's one of our democratic services officers out clerking the meeting, what happens when the decision maker is unable to take part in a meeting?
We adjourn the meeting. I've got, I can put the slide up if required.
I
think it's access problems rather than, I think we should give him a moment.
Oh yeah,
Would you like to put the screen up?
I think that will be, if Councillor Cal Corkery, who's the Labour spokesman on community safety, who's at the meeting, is okay with that, then I would suggest that that's okay, whilst we resolve Councillor Lee Hunt's technical problems.
Yes, of course. Please be aware that the audio will still be running. Okay, I'm going to do that now.
Lee's left the call, so he may well be kind of restarting or rebooting the program with a bit of luck.
Okay. Yes, that's right. Okay. Chair, can you hear me okay?
I can now.
Brilliant.
Okay. Stage like that. Okay, so I got to the end of that. So I will now ask councillors to introduce themselves. Can we start with the opposition spokesperson? I've had apologies from Councillor Jevon, by the way, everybody, and the superintendent. She can't make it along today. After you, Cal.
Afternoon, everyone. Cal Corkery, one of the councillors for Charles Dickens Ward and a Labour spokesperson for community safety.
So I run a very open meeting and I invite all councillors to come along. To say that Councillor Darren can't because they've shown up to take interest as well. Want to introduce yourself, Darren, and say what you do?
Yeah, surely. Thank you very much. I'm Darren Sanders. I'm the Cabinet Member for Housing and Preventing Homelessness. I'm here for the item on community wardens as the housing revenue account, which effectively is the housing budget, pays into that particular bit.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. Today we'll be considering a number of reports, but first of all, I've got done the apologies for absence, so the superintendent sent her apologies, and Councillor Gemma New has sent her apologies too. And we're going to be considering 3 reports today. One is about the seeking approval for the independent sexual violence advocate tender. The item 4 will be about community wardens and CCTV, and item 5, safeguarding the camera update. And I suspect those 2 will pretty much melt into each other. Okay then.
Chair,
So
may
I think we've got Bruce with us this afternoon. Would the officers be kind enough to introduce themselves by switching their cameras on? We'll start with you, Roy.
Hi there. Yeah, Roy Goulding, Community Safety Manager, and I've got the 2 reports that I'm going to present, Community Wardens and the Safeguarding Camera reports this afternoon.
And Bruce?
Yes, good afternoon. Bruce Marr, Head Harm and Exploitation, and I'm presenting the Independent Sexual Violence Advocate report.
Thank you. And Jane?
Hello, I'm Jane Didino, the Local Democracy Officer. And could I ask you, Chair, whether either you or Councillor Corkery have any declarations of interest?
No.
No, not myself.
Thank you.
And we've got Tony Hadley with us. Anthony Hadley. Are you there, Anthony?
Hadley, I'm the CC3 Manager. I'm here supporting Roy Goulding.
Thank you all very much. Well, that's that. So, right, off we go then, Bruce. If you could introduce the item number 3.
Thank you very much, Lee. So a brief summary of my report. This is to request that the Cabinet Member for Community Safety agrees to jointly recommission the Independent Sexual Violence Advocacy Service in partnership with Hampshire County Council, Southampton City Council and the Office of the Police Crime Commissioner. We're looking to retender from the 1st of April 2022 to the end of March 2025, which is 3 years, with an option to extend another 4 years on a +2 basis, with a total contribution by Portsmouth City Council of £105,000 over the 7-year period. Paragraph 3 gives some background and identifies the level of need and a summary of the provision to date. So I'm not going to go into much detail about that, other than to say the current contract is a partnership between Hampshire County Council, Portsmouth City Council and the Office of the Police Crime Commissioner, and has an annual contract value of £118,900, of which Portsmouth City Council contribute £10,000 per year. The proposal is for the new contract to include Southampton City Council, and with a significant contribution from across partners and a variety of other funding streams being aligned into one, the proposed annual contract value will increase to £310,800 per year. This has yet to be finalised, as we would need confirmation from the other respective partners. However, it's proposed that Portsmouth City Council's contribution would increase by 50% from £10,000 to £15,000 per year. We believe this represents exceptional value for money and improves the efficiency and effectiveness without any loss of quality of provision. The significant contribution from the Office of the Police Crime Commissioner increases the resource capacity, and one contract provider improves the flexibility to prioritise need across all areas within the Hampshire County Council area and Portsmouth City Council and Southampton City Council areas. So requesting agreement for the proposal.
Right. Cal, any questions?
I don't have any questions, Lee. Got a few comments. So happy to give those now or later on, if you like.
No, go ahead now.
Okay, sure. So clearly we've had the opportunity to flesh out some of the detail and ask kind of more specific questions in the briefing prior to this. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to have done so. Just a few quick comments, I guess, on the report and what it's proposing. I think that I'm sure we all recognise the importance of services that meet this particular need within the community, and especially since lockdown has been in place. I'm sure we're all aware of reports and probably casework of instances where residents have needed to access these services, and it's just really important that they're there for them when they're needed. I know that the service in Portsmouth currently been provided by Aurora New Dawn, an organisation which I've met with previously and been really impressed by the passion and the commitment of the members of staff working within that service. And I appreciate it going forwards. The result of the tender, we don't know at this stage, but I just thought it was worth remarking on how the service has been run to date and the fact that it's providing that really important kind of function for the local community. Also just wanted to highlight some comments that have been made by a local campaigner who's got experience of using services themselves. I think it's always important, if we can, to try and kind of relate to the experience, that lived experience of people at the front line. And so Kirsty Meller, kind of in the local paper, in reference to this report coming out, has talked about the importance of the service. And I just wanted to quote from that because I thought it was quite a powerful testimony. And she said, "The work ISVAs do saves lives, and that is why I wholeheartedly support the extension of the ISVA provisions, and I'm pleased to hear that Portsmouth City Council is supporting this." So those are kind of Kirsty's words, but I'd absolutely endorse those and welcome the report. Thank you.
Yeah, I think from my thinking, the joy or the preference to have it done by people not in authority, as it were, by people like Yellow Door, via Aurora New Dawn, means that I think individuals, I don't want to use the word comfortable, but will find it easier to go to them and gain confidence there to then onwardly report to police or others about what has happened to them. So I think by doing it that way is much better, and they have evolved a wealth of experience in helping individuals through these traumatic experiences, no matter what age or sex they are. So we're very grateful to be able to have their experience on call, as it were. And I think, as Bruce and Mr. Marr has said, that the contribution from Portsmouth, you don't want to talk about value necessarily, but it speaks for itself, doesn't it? You know, for over 7 years, you know, the cost of the contract is £105,000, at £15,000 a year. It is, you know, the service that we get in Portsmouth is very beneficial. Joining up with the Police Crime Commissioner and Southampton and all these other partners, it's a very difficult thing, isn't it? Sexual violence, and as Councillor Corkery mentioned just now, and Bruce has mentioned, the pandemic means that more people are indoors. Of course, some of this also happens indoors, behind closed doors, and we don't know about it till quite later on, sometimes months or even years later on. So yes, it is a vital service, an important service, and not a statutory service, is it, Bruce? No. Go on, Bruce. Carry on.
No statutory requirement to provide the provision.
So this is one that we fund locally, and it's a good service to want to fund and to work in partnership with. So unless anybody, hello Scott, nice to see you. If anybody else wants to come back and say anything, I'll agree the report then. Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Bruce. You're free to go if you wish. Much obliged. Thank you for your time today. So I'm going back to my agenda now. So are you on standby there, Roy?
I am. Yep. I was.
Anything can happen in the next half hour with Thunderbird.
I know. I was kicked out. I've got a phone as a backup. Yeah, I've got
Thunderbirds, I'll go, Roy. Off you go.
Right. So I'm going to do the community warden one first, and then obviously Anthony Hadley's there to help me out if required for the safeguarding camera report. So I was asked to prepare an information-only report in terms of the community warden work in the previous year, calendar year 2020, which, as we all know, and as we're still living through at the moment, was a challenging year. I think we'll say that. It's a challenging year. So it wasn't a normal year, certainly for any of us, let alone the community warden team. So I'll give an update as to how we got through the year, where we currently are. And I think I was on leave last week, but I understand the council meeting agreed the budget. So there is an update to my last point in terms of the number of wardens that will become permanent. So in terms of the information requested, I can confirm that the wardens, despite the various lockdowns, all different tiers in place, and the current lockdown that we're in, continue to work throughout, and in slightly different ways throughout the year. Obviously, we've learned a lot. We've put a lot more in place since sort of February, March time. That meant that we switched a lot of stuff on that we'd restricted early on. So during sort of the March time, we were reduced some of the work, or there was less demand on some of the work that we would normally do in terms of the housing blocks, for example. So where we may have been dealing with some of the homelessness issues within some of the communal areas of housing blocks, they were lifted up off the streets, most of them, and placed into accommodation. And I'll go a little bit more onto that in a moment. But it meant that the community wardens had some resource to do some additional works, and 3.2, a couple of examples where we were collecting and providing, delivering hot food to the homeless community. We provided a presence and support at the because the household waste recycling centre was closed initially, and when it opened up in a COVID managed way, we needed the additional officers there to support that, and now that's operating obviously as an appointment system, but it means that our officers don't need to be there now, that they were required at the beginning. And then when we did lift some of those that were rough sleeping or homeless, because they weren't necessarily all rough sleeping, but they may have been sofa surfing or in accommodation that COVID meant that they could no longer share that accommodation. Accommodation was provided in the form of a hotel. It's commissioned with 2 hotels eventually, and the team assisted with support in and around that with our other colleagues from Society St James and our various housing options and supported housing colleagues. Going on to the next one. The other thing I think just to reference is with the additional wardens that we took on fixed term contracts a couple of years ago, it enabled us to extend our hours out on the ground from 8 a.m. until 2 a.m., whereas previously we would have finished at 10 p.m. What it meant was, as I described earlier, we weren't really getting the demand in some of the tower blocks, so we were able to switch off the 2 a.m. shift to give us that additional presence during sort of the early evening, afternoon, where demand was higher. What we say, we learned very quickly in terms of risk assessments, because a lot of the duties that the guys do going through waste and face-to-face contact, we need to be very careful and make sure we're compliant with the legislation. So it did lead to a change of working practice. We introduced PPE, and there was a difficulty in terms of, again, sharing vehicles, so we were able to overcome that. We're deploying officers from home where we can now. They've got the technical equipment, laptops to help, and we're all able to, as we're doing now, a virtual meeting, the guys are able to do that. In terms of some number crunching, there's a big number there. The committee warden team were responsible for completing 24,500 demands in the last calendar year, and that was a combination of proactive patrolling and direct calls from to the service. There were 15,500 patrols, and when I sort of reference patrols, they're not just randomly walking around in areas sort of in case we see something. They are targeted. We are demand led. So if we are aware of a particular issue in a particular park, we are able to allocate our resource to that, and we provide briefing sheets to the team. So there's a further breakdown there of some of the individual sort of tasks within that bigger figure that includes housing block patrols, as I've described. They tend to be early evening and the 2 a.m. shift cover. During the daytime, housing provides, they have estate service officers and there are other staff on up until sort of 5, and we tend to sort of go into those areas beyond that, although we're not restricted during the day. We again, demand led, we can go in there. Welfare checks, again, it references where we are dealing with some of those that we find on the street. So we work with our outreach colleagues, again, housing options and housing providers to try and get people support, whether it be house or accommodation. But unfortunately, occasionally there will be individuals that we are presenting as homeless and rough sleeping, that when we look into it, they're not necessarily. So we've got, we're able to differentiate between our responses to that. In terms of the cabinet report, the report that went to the cabinet on the 3rd of November, it confirmed that the 8 additional community wardens that were on fixed term contracts for the previous 2 years, we were able to sort of carry that forward, but actually it's slightly better result for us in that 4 of those 8, we've just gone through a recruitment process and we've got another 4 permanent wardens to add to the previous team of 8. So that gives us 12 permanent community warden posts. And we did manage with some additional, so that was HRA funding that was able to do those additional 4. In terms of the homeless reduction grant and some reserve money, we've managed to secure the 4 remaining community wardens for a further year up until the 31st of March 2022. So we've got a team of 16 community wardens with 2 community wardens, warden managers that come underneath or come under my management. So I think it's a successful year. It's very challenging. It always is challenging as that team, but I think they should be congratulated for managing to get through the year. Where we currently sort of placed is most of it. We're in another lockdown now. Most of the demand is say switched back on, and some of the earlier additional duties, whilst we're able to help out where we can, other services have switched themselves back on as well. I think that's probably me on that one, Councillor Hunt.
You're muted, Lee.
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm usually not on mute, but there we go. Anyway, Cal, that was Roy went through the report for us. You've got it in front of you as well, I expect. But is there any questions you'd like to ask Roy, Councillor Corkery?
Not any questions, Lee. No, just a few comments.
Very good. Councillor Peter Harris, good afternoon. Very nice of you to come and join us. Good afternoon to you. Very nice for you to come and join us.
No, you're welcome, Lee.
That's all right. Did you? I guess I should ask if you've got any interest to declare. If you're going to comment on anything or anything like that, just to go through the routine?
No, I'm just observing. I was invited to attend, so and
Yeah,
apologies
that's
for my
lovely.
lateness. Apologies for my
Indeed.
lateness, Councillor.
We all have a duty across the council to bear down on crime under Section 17 of the Act, as is hammered into me all the time by Lisa Wills. Quite right too. Councillor Sanders, you're here to make a deputation on this item. Would you like to go ahead, or to say something about it?
Yes, I'd be happy to, if that's all right. Thank you, Lee. And
if
please,
you've got any questions, throw them in at the same time.
That's all right. I don't have any questions. Sorry, I've been looking away from my screen because I've actually been reading the report as Roy was talking. So I don't have any questions, but a few observations, if I may, from the housing side of things. I think it was important when looking at the council that actually we operate in a more integrated fashion. Too often there have been too many silos. And I think when we resumed control in 2018, we felt that the wardens had suffered a bit from that. And therefore, one way to expand the warden provision that people wanted us to do and deal with the issues that people told us existed, such as people sleeping overnight in housing blocks, was actually to bring in the resources of the housing revenue account, which is a budget I oversee, to assist. And that meant we could have more wardens on the streets and they'd be going to more of the places that they actually want to go. And I have detected the grand total of no resistance to that at all, which is great, because I think it's the sort of thing people's living on our council estates want their rent to go on, because they want to feel safe like everyone else. And I think that the more integrated working has been very, very useful, and people seem very happy with it. That's good. I would also back up what Roy has been saying with regards to the provision for homelessness. Councillors Pater, Harris and Corkery are my opposite numbers in housing as well. And so we've all had the details about the excellent work that Roy and the team have been doing. And it's been a balanced approach, help where possible, a telling off occasionally. I've certainly seen the wardens engage with rough sleepers in Palmerston Road. Some of them have been really quite rough and have reputations of being really quite rough, and they've done a very, very good job. So I think they're a credit to the authority. And I also want to back up a bit of my own area. I represent the area around by Baffin's Pond. We'd had significant issues around antisocial behaviour last summer, and I was delighted when the warden spent a significant amount of time around there, not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which I would have loved, but a significant amount of time around there actually listening and talking and providing a presence, because we know the police are stretched. The police know they're stretched. And the wardens are a very good counterpoint, and that's why I'm delighted that it looks as if the Chief Constable is actually interested in actually working with the wardens much more, so that we can actually have an integrated, may not be seamless, but a much more integrated service, because people just want to feel safe. And that's why I'm delighted that this report is here. I'm delighted we've been able to expand the wardens. More community safety specialists like Cal and others to comment on it, but from my perspective, this is great. We keep going. Thank you, Lee. And I seem to have bored everyone so rigid that all the cameras have gone off. Jane?
Councillor Sanders, I was just about to ask you whether you turned your camera off. You didn't. Okay.
No, I haven't. I'm happy to turn it off if you wish.
No.
It's Lee's meeting, but Lee's
No, it's Councillor Hunt that decides.
Okay, I'll just do whatever.
Councillor Hunt, can you're muted, Councillor Hunt.
My camera is on, but I can't see anybody else.
Could everybody else try and turn their cameras on, please?
Yeah, Jane, my camera's on. I can see Councillor Hunt and Roy, but I can't see Darren or Cal. So I don't know if there's a glitch in the system at the moment.
Yeah,
Councillor Corkery, can we hear you?
Yeah, I can hear you. My camera is on, but I'm not sure if it's shut or not.
Councillor Hunt, if your camera's on and if we can hear the proceedings, that's why we can carry on.
Indeed. Cal, we've seen your very handsome face already. So do you want to go ahead with comments?
Yeah, sure, I will do. Thank you. Yeah, I think I probably agree with a lot of which has already been said. The community wardens clearly do a really important and valued job. Probably the bulk, if not the majority of which is often done within the Charles Dickens ward boundaries. on the council estates and in the blocks. And I certainly know that, like I say, it's a service that's appreciated by residents, so that they know that they've got someone that they can ring and make aware of issues, and a kind of another pair of hands to try and come and help out and have a bit of a presence when there are issues. Like Darren said, because the police are so stretched that sometimes they're not always able to play that role. I thought it was probably worth feeding back a recent bit of casework I'd had about a particular block where a resident had reported issues around a group of young people who were causing issues in the communal areas, and I had discussion then with the community warden team leaders, who are always a really good kind of fount of knowledge whenever we've got particular bits of casework. And that particular resident rang up, I think it was on a Sunday as well, at 15:34. And within 20 minutes, by 15:54, the community wardens have been able to get a pair of people out to go and have a little wander about and have a word with the people that have been causing an issue. Now, I know it's not an emergency service, so they shouldn't necessarily be expected to respond immediately, but I think that just shows the kind of flexibility that is there within the system for them to be able to respond to issues when they do crop up like that. And I think that's also speaks to the role that they've played over the course of the pandemic. I know that Roy has talked about being redeployed into homelessness services. I know they also played a really important role with managing traffic up at the tip. And I think that is kind of really to be valued and I guess thanked, because that does take flexibility, it does take change, but it clearly shows that that team and everyone that was involved was willing to do that and able to do that. And I think that also, for me, is something that highlights a wider point about public and council services being provided in-house. Now, I know there's never been any kind of suggestion that this particular service wouldn't be provided in-house, but it's just worth reflecting on the fact that where the council does directly provide its services, then it does often have greater control and flexibility and the ability to kind of adapt and respond to things as needed. Also kind of welcome the discussion around roles being made permanent where possible, the 4 additional roles. I know this is something that we've had discussions about in this meeting, and I think in the housing meetings as well previously. I do feel quite strongly that wherever possible, roles should be made permanent. I know that funding arrangements don't always allow for that, but actually it can play a significant role, and there's of significant benefit to the staff working in those services if they've got a little bit more certainty about their longer term employment. So like I say, that's also to be welcomed, and hopefully is something that is always at the back of people's minds when we're looking at how services are structured and staffed. So yeah, thank you very much for the report, Roy, and please do pass on our thanks to the teams, the community warden teams, because I know that they do a really great job.
Thank you. I will do that.
Okay, I know this is cross-party. Before I come to you, Scott, I'd just like to reflect that when I first was appointed to this role, I made it clear that I was going to back the community wardens, and I made it clear that I was going to try and work with my colleagues to get the funding to make them all permanent. We've gone along a fair way that with these 4 extra wardens posts that have been made permanent, and we have 4 more to go. There is no question about it that it is a very good service indeed. The community wardens are worth their weight in gold. Nothing is too much trouble, and if a service needs a hand because they've got a particular issue ongoing in whichever area, we contact Roy, and many thanks to Roy too, and to Anthony and everyone else concerned, and Warren and all. They respond so quickly, as Cal has described. And I think one of the reasons for that is it's not a sloppy service, is because they know that we are proud of them and they have pride in their service. Therefore, they want to deliver a very good service. So we all work together on this, and the result is this good service. And indeed, we have the housing revenue account from thanks to Darren and my talking to him and with others in the cabinet, as we continue to fund this very important service for the city. So Scott, would you like to add anything? Have a chat or anything?
I'll be honest, Lee, I think a lot of this has been said already, but I think the flexibility of the service and what the service can do across multiple portfolios in the council is quite tremendous. And hadn't seen it firsthand at the beginning of the pandemic when the community wardens were down with the hotels supporting rough sleepers and homelessness. I think it showed that the diversity of what they can deliver. And I think, as you said already, Lee, it's very much a cross-party feeling on community wardens. I think we all know what a great job they do, and I personally have to say to Roy and on behalf of my group and to his team that we are proud of them, because they work extremely hard and they're already so accessible, already very easy to get information and to help councillors and members of the public. So it's a valuable service, and it's great to see that everybody across the council appreciates the work they do. And it's very important. And like, I think me, Darren and Cal have had these conversations in our housing briefings and meetings quite a lot about the value we place on community wardens. And actually, I think we can't actually put a monetary value on them because of what they bring to the city. They're an invaluable service for us. So I'm really proud to see this here, Lee. I think it's a really important report, and it's grateful to see it going forward. So well done to everyone.
Yeah, thanks for that, Councillor Peter Harris. I think something I'd just mention briefly too is something Councillor Corkery touched on, is how the community wardens interact with younger people, and they intervene and they try and signpost them into better activities. So so they step in and add to the youth provision that we do, and integrate with the youth centres and the play centres and all these other things which we all know about. So it is integrated, and everybody does talk to each other. So it's a tremendous service, no question about it. And we've laboured it long enough. We've let Roy get on if he wants to, and maybe we'll hear from Anthony this time as we move on to CCTVs, safeguarding cameras, as I prefer to them. Safeguarding cameras, that must be in the report. Safeguarding cameras, that's what they are. And it's not Big Brother anymore, and I'm sure Cal will have something to say about this, and quite rightly too. Keep us on our toes about Big Brother. I don't mind that at all. So these cameras, which either Roy or Auntie's going to talk to us about, I've done a video about them today as well. So we'll see me up there in all the on the stage about cameras. So anyway, off to you, Roy.
Yeah, I'll try and do a summary of the report that you've got there, and Taff will, he's my technical man. All the difficult questions, Anthony will answer. So if I started off, so I mean,
Roy, as you go through this, and I know Anthony's going to do this, I hope, but can you remember, one of you remember to point out how the new Wi-Fi systems will help improve the pictures and so on? I think that's really important, because people are seeing them dug up all around the streets, and they've got to know that there's a benefit for it. Carry on.
Yeah, I think we can. I mean, if I forget, Anthony can come in and we can talk about. I think this is one that the decision that the budget for the budgets last week was taken in terms to some capital expenditure that will help the control room. So again, there's an update when I get to the final bit about us looking at additional funding. We've actually been successful, and we've got, I think, an additional £50,000 that will certainly be gratefully received within the team. I know Anthony's very happy about that. So again, the other bit I just very briefly touched on, because Councillor Corkery did reference the internal sort of staffing. The operators, when I go on to the operators, they were previously when the cameras were installed for a number of years contracted out that service. And a couple of years ago, we brought the service back in. So all the employees that I reference, again, are Portsmouth City Council employees now. And exactly the reason around the flexibility about covering and being able to do things, it is invaluable, as it is with the community wardens. Right, okay, so in terms of the number crunching, again, there are 133 fixed public space cameras. They're the big cameras that you tend to see out the streets and at the high streets and looking at the roads and monitoring. So we've got 133 of those that come all the way back to a control room in the basement at civic offices, and a very good up-to-date control room that we recently updated. But again, with technology, there's always new stuff to be done. So I'll talk about that in a bit. In addition to that, several years ago, where we were in complaints in certain areas where we can't have cameras everywhere, I'm sure people understand why, in addition to cost, but proportionality, all those types of things. So 18 redeployable cameras are part of a suite that we've now got that enable us in areas whereby there are reports of antisocial behaviour that we can't resolve, or maybe the evidence isn't quite there in terms of what it is. We're able to deploy these cameras for a short or longer period of time to evidence what there is or isn't happening, and they've been invaluable. So again, that's something that's a positive news at the end of this report. So we've got 18 of those, and they're used across the city. And they're all up at the moment being used in areas. There's always a high demand on those. There's higher demand than there are cameras, so we always want more. 14 of those cameras are a triple camera, so we can virtually get a 360-degree view if by putting it on they are clamped to lampposts. So there are certain restrictions, but I'll go on to explain certain areas that we might be able to do a bespoke job, should we say, rather than just using these ones. So I've given some examples there where we've identified fly tipping. We've actually got successful prosecutions and some fines for that's come in. We certainly, Hampshire Constabulary are very much in favour of the cameras, and they're probably the highest agency in terms of demand for viewing and taking away footage. And I've got some numbers further down on that one. We've again been very successful in terms of court outcomes where our cameras have been useful. I think the new police chief that's come in has given some examples of some cases where that's happened at a previous meeting. So Anthony Hadley, I'll introduce him. He's the CCTV manager. He's also the single point of contact for all things surveillance wise. So he's, again, tech, as I say, I rely on him. He's able to design, install bespoke systems. An example of that was where we were getting, I think we've had several, but there was one particular break-in to the fencing at College Park, the animal sanctuary. We initially put a deployable camera up on the corner, on the lamppost, whilst what that enabled us to do was identify that actually we needed a longer term solution at that particular location. So the councillors for that ward agreed for to put some payment in from monies that they had, and we were able to put a permanent solution on that. And then the redeployable camera was able to be used elsewhere. Other examples where we've done bespoke systems where we felt that it needed it is City Museum and Fratton Community Centre as a couple of examples. There are many more. We've stretched our arm to Gosport Borough Council, who asked for some support, and we were able to and happy to give them some quotes for some systems, and we've currently got 6 systems that are in Gosport, and we have to manage and maintain those, and there may be more to come. So in terms of the officers that we've got, there are 10 officers that Anthony Hadley manages, and there are 8 operators work in pairs. So we cover, say, a few of that Magic Christmas off. They are 24 hours a day, 365 days a year service. So they will be working Christmas Day, or they were working, and they continue to work Christmas Day and the New Year. They're actively monitor, review, download, so they'll have a number of screens in front And again, they can prioritise depending on the time of day and what types of demands there are, what they're actually looking at. They can't look at all those cameras at the same time, but they can very quickly switch around if an incident's occurring and we get a call from the police, for example. So numbers there they dealt with 7,298 incidents in the last calendar year, and over 1,000 discs were copied for partners, predominantly police, but there'll be others. And in addition to that, they had 235 viewings where we've been given an incident and identified that actually either we've not seen anything or it's not picked. It wasn't the incident as it was reported, so we haven't produced a copy. In addition to the operators, this team was contracted out. We had an external agency that would provide our repairs and maintenance. So again, several years ago, we decided to bring that in-house. We now have 2 security equipment engineers who, again, we maintain, repair, replace, and we install. It's all done under the management of Anthony there. So they're invaluable, that team. So they're also the ones that will put up our redeployables, up the lampposts one day and maybe up a different one at the next. In addition to that, this is a big number, in terms of, say, the housing stock, and PCC being having quite a lot of housing stock and tower blocks, and there are 1,800 cameras within all of those if you add them up. And we're also responsible for making sure that they're maintained or installed if required at blocks that don't have them. Funding, the actual funding of the Safeguarded Camera team is wholly funded by Portsmouth City Council, with the odd little bit of additional income that we get as a reference Gosport, for example. To continue to explore additional income to enable continuous improvement towards the infrastructure, the control room and camera system. So we did put in a bid for additional 3 cameras and some infrastructure to the control room, and I understand that's been successful. I've just returned from leave, and I've got Councillor Hunt might confirm it, but I understand that was successful. So we should be able to add.
It was
brilliant. 3 additional of the 3 the triple cam units to our system. In relation to, again, future-proofing the control room and the technical sort of, improvements that come along, Councillor Hunt did refer to sort of all the various Wi-Fi stuff that's going on, and we're currently looking. We've got a year left on a particular contract that we've got in terms of our infrastructure, phone lines, and we're looking at a way where we can switch over from an analog system to sort of a Wi-Fi system that will. I might pass over to Anthony on this one in terms of what benefits that may bring us in terms of the quality of the camera, the image, I guess, we're looking at. Anthony, did you want to just talk a bit about the plan for the dates that we're looking to do next year or this current year?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, as Roy just judged, we're currently in a contract with an analog fibre optic system for all cameras. So the camera's currently analog mode. However, over the last few years, we have been investing in new style cameras, which are a hybrid variety. At the moment, as I say, they are in analog mode. However, they can be switched over to digital. So when the infrastructure is in place, new contracts are in place, we can start switching over, which will increase our capacity, I suppose, to 1080p cameras. The quality increase, the evidential value will increase, and just generally make the city safer.
Indeed. Thanks, Anthony. Could you just touch on the staff in the control room, because they are the unsung heroes because you don't see them so much, but there they are backing up the community wardens and the police, all of you, I think about 10 altogether, eight actually on the cameras in pairs. But I think the controllers they develop an intuition. They can anticipate things and stuff. And I'd be interested to hear about that and their experience and how they work with wardens and the regulatory services and other staff.
Anthony, did you want to talk about the relationship between them either identifying an incident or an incident being reported through, and how they're then able to then contact, say, either the community wardens for a quick response? Maybe a couple of examples might help.
Yeah, no problem at all. As we said, we've got eight operators working 24-hour patterns. I started off as an operator, so I've got first-hand experience with this. When you start, you don't know what you're doing. You have to pick it up. Unfortunately, you have to be suspicious. You have to have a suspicious mind. You get to learn body language. You see what's going on. You get to learn faces. You get to learn places. You're seeing some random things at random times. Thankfully, we have the option to pass any images we see through to the police in real-time mode to the police control room in Netley. Our operators can pass it through. Also, using the radio, they can inform the police. The police then decide whether they can respond or not. If, however, it's not deemed as necessarily a police response, we phone the community wardens, or as it is now, we have a radio to the COVID wardens, so we can contact them if we need them to look at things. So yeah, it's multi-service, and yeah, you've just got to be quite switched on all the time. As we say, there's 133 cameras to look at. You can't look at them all, but you do pick up the locations. You pick up different incidents at different times, and you soon learn it. We give on-the-job training for 3 months. However, we do say you're not going to be a fully competent CCTV operator for at least 12 months before you can pick it up. So I take my hats off to them. I did it for 9 years, and I've got operators down there that have been there for 15, nearly 20 years, some of them. So it's a good job, and they do a fantastic job. And as you say, they're down in the dungeon as such, and they're unseen and unheard.
Yeah, unsung heroes.
Definitely.
Yeah, very quickly, whilst I've got you, and we'll come to Cal in just a moment. But it's important, isn't it, to keep this equipment upgraded? Otherwise, suddenly you'll suddenly find the systems dropped so far behind, you wouldn't be able to afford to make it efficient again.
Yes, definitely. Computers change. As we say, the cameras are changing. The more we're going to ramp up to the higher quality, the better pictures, the faster streaming. We need better internet. We need better computers. We need better switching. It's constantly changing. The control room, in fact, I helped build in 2014, so 7 years old. We have upgraded a few bits. The stuff is showing its age now, so the money we've just kindly been granted will go towards upgrading the systems, upgrading the monitors, making the computers faster, better graphics cards. Technology, as I say, is changing so quickly. The cameras are changing so quickly as well. There's firmware updates, software updates, hardware updates every 2 to 3 months. It's a lot to keep on top of.
Great, and all helping to take the fight to those in our communities who blight our neighbourhoods with crime and antisocial behaviour. So thank you to you, and please pass on our thanks to the guys and girls in the control room. So that's all right, Anthony. Cal, any questions?
I don't have any questions, Lee, just a few comments.
Sure. Scott, any questions?
None at all for me, Councillor Hunt. I just it's a few comments at all, but that's fine.
Sure, no problem. Darren, would you like to ask any questions?
No, I too have a few comments at your indulgence, Lee.
No, of course, very indulgent. Cal, over to you then on your comments.
Thank you, Lee. Yeah, interesting report. Clearly, the CCTs, or the safeguarding camera service, as you'll call it now, plays a really important role and is there to support the community wardens and the police and the other parts of the council, kind of as and when necessary, and that's certainly to be welcomed. I thought it's just worth remarking on an aspect which I know I've mentioned a few times, but I think it's probably worth just continuing to flag the issue just so that the public are aware as much as anything that it is something that we as elected representatives, but also council officers, are aware of and kind of taken into consideration when decisions are being made about how CCTV or safeguarding cameras are deployed and used. And that's with regards, I guess, to the privacy aspect. Now, I think I was reading earlier and I've heard before that the UK is the most watched nation on earth in terms of the ratio of cameras to people. And like I say, clearly there are times in which that is absolutely necessary and proportionate. But I think we just need to be mindful of considerations such as privacy and human rights. And I know that the service operates within quite a strict kind of regulatory framework, and those considerations are taken into account. But going forward, I think, like I say, it's just worth us reminding ourselves of that and ensuring that the public are aware that actually there are safeguards in place on that, on how this service is used, and that it's used in a proportionate way.
Yeah, that's great, Cal. Thank you. And just my little remark to that, of course, is that I expect you to remind us, and I'm grateful that you do. And of course, I would remind everybody too that the UK enjoys, I think, the world's only unarmed police service. And part of that is the way that the police do it by consent and have the confidence of the public. And I think that the cameras, the safeguarding cameras, give the police confidence too, because they work both ways. They protect the police, they protect the public. And sometimes too, when allegations are made that something has gone wrong, they find out that something has not gone wrong. But I would rather have cameras than guns on police. And I think cameras, that's not a dig at you at all, Cal, is just that by working in this way, I think we managed to keep our police free from routinely being armed, and safeguarding cameras have a part to play in there. And you can have another go later on if you want, Cal. Scott, would you like to say anything?
It's just actually, I think it's more so on the question that you made about the cost. If we didn't upgrade these now, we'd be looking at a longer cost over a longer period. And I think if anything, the pandemic's taught us is the use of technology and how we need to get ahead of the curve with technology at the moment. And I think this is quite a good example of that. So I think it's a really sensible report and a sensible use of the funds as well in terms of upgrading.
You're absolutely right, because the recent police crime panel, it was abundantly clear. One of the reasons the police budget had to jump a bit was because they'd allowed over a period of time, they hadn't made allowances for renewing equipment and for new equipment and so on. So a lot of the 5% that on equipment for officers, much needed equipment. So yeah, keeping on top of things is really important. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so, and I know we look at it as like a functional thing that the council should be doing anyway, but I mean the amount of funds that have to go into ever-changing technology, which is what it is fundamentally, it's ever-changing technology. So we've got to adapt with the times, and I think as a rolling program, it'd be quite interesting to see in say a year's time where we are with technology. Has it moved on again? Which I think is something for you to look at as the cabinet member. But it's a really it's an interesting report, to be fair. And the notion about how many cameras actually we have in the city that we're operating and the breadth that they actually the areas that they cover is quite outstanding. So yeah, no, it's a very sensible use of the funds.
Yeah, people aren't frightened of them anymore. You know, they want them. That's the truth there. And as Roy said earlier on, the demand for their use is high because it's not only crime. There's environmental crime too, like fly tipping. Something that's a bugbear for all of us with the fly tipping going on, and they're very effective in preventing and deterring the fly tipping, and indeed catching, gathering evidence to prosecute people too. Darren Sanders.
Thanks, Lee. I too welcome this report. I like firstly the balanced approach that Roy and Tony outlined, and this is part of a package of things. And the way that we do CCTV in this council is part of that package. So it has to be brought alongside the wardens, it has to be brought alongside other forms of engagement, particularly youth services, both on housing estates and elsewhere. So it forms part of a package. I think the way we do it is also very helpful. I mean, I remember in my own ward, police CCTV cameras turning up on Tangier Road with the word CCTV on the side, and then recording very little, because unsurprisingly, the perpetrators just went away for a few days, waited for the cameras and the vans to leave, and then started all over again. Whereas I think the way we do it through the redeployable stuff and through some of the technology that Cal has outlined, Scott outlined, apologies, Scott outlined earlier, is very, very helpful. And that's why I was delighted that the budget you and I voted for, Lee, as part of the largest minority of councillors, went through with this intact, because it's absolutely right that we invest more. People still want these cameras, and we have to give people resilience so that we can all feel safe. So I support this report, Lee.
Yeah, thank you very much. Unless anybody wants to say anything else, Cal, because I mentioned you again, did you want to add anything at all?
Well, I wasn't going to add anything else, but it's probably worth pointing out that I think there's a bit of a false dichotomy to say that we've either got to have cameras or guns on the street, but I'm sure that wasn't quite the point that was made. Obviously, there are ways to deter crime, but like I say, the point I wanted to make in general was that I think it's important that issues around surveillance and privacy are flagged, and I really was just kind of pointing out that they have been flagged, and that it is something that the council and councillors are aware of, and ensuring is addressed.
Yeah, sorry if it was made it look a bit raw. I think the point I was trying to get across, perhaps badly, is that we do policing by consent in this country, and the police feel safer because they have body worn cameras now, and they're being looked after by these safeguarding camera systems around the country. So they're not on their own, and I think it's the way that we all see policing by consent and helping the police in all these different ways, that they remain unarmed, and I think that's a really good thing to understand. And if anybody else has got anything else to say, I'll sum up very quickly, if I may. Okay, so look, by having this discussion today, you see that security and safeguarding of people across our city isn't only the police, it isn't only the community wardens, it isn't only the safeguarding cameras and the staff doing that, looking after us all year round, 24/7. Is a combination of working together and with the regulatory services and youth services. So that is what is important, that we continue all to support one another, and that we all continue to work together to tackle antisocial behaviour, and working with the police and the extra funding from the police that was granted a couple of weeks back, to go after those people in our communities who are committing crime and making the lives of residents miserable with antisocial behaviour. So the investment that we've done into the control room, the investment into making community wardens more permanent, and the investment that's going into the police, all will come together to improve the quality of lives for people. So far as the police, would be better if they didn't cut the police in the first place, but that's a different story. But there we are. Anyway, we're all doing the best we can. I'm very grateful to all the council staff and to everybody for supporting the meeting today, and for everybody that kind of gave up their time and come to one of my more unusual type of meetings. Thunderbirds are go. Okay, that's it. I don't think anybody else got anything to add. All right, Jane, everybody, thank you so much for supporting us today and for coming along and bearing with us. Much obliged to everybody, and I close the meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
Turn off the
Lee.
live streaming.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye, goodbye.